Okay, welcome back, everybody, to another week of the Fixate Binge Podcast. I am your weekly host, Joe, and I'm so glad you're back with us. If you're watching this video on the YouTube channel, if you're watching the video of this on YouTube, yes, you've probably noticed that I have some facial hair. I've got a little grizzled mustache on my face. I mostly started growing facial hair in general, which I'm not blessed with. I'm not a very hirsute man. I try and pick people that are admired or that people look up to who are equally follically challenged, and I try and identify with them. So I used to say, I have Johnny Depp's facial hair problem. I have a brother-in-law, and he would say, hey, he's bald. He was like, I have a Bruce Willis baldness thing. So he would try and pick somebody that people look up to or thought that was relatively good looking anyway, and then say, anyway. So I've got a really bad mustache on, and I think the thing that surprised me more than anything is I look like my father. I've morphed into my dad. My father has had a mustache. I think he's had a mustache since he was born. I have never not seen my dad with a mustache, and of course it's a salt and pepper mustache now. And now I'm old enough that I look like my father, and I don't know if I'm happy with that. So I'm coming to terms with genes and genetics and the things that are passed down. And thankfully, my daughters don't have to worry about sporting a mustache like their dad, or maybe they will. I hope not. But anyway, if you're watching this, I'm on the fence about shaving it or not. I'm not sure. I'll figure it out eventually. I am really excited for you guys to be here this week. I've got a wonderful guest returning to the podcast. I would love to have this actress, producer, and writer on every episode of this podcast, but as you will hear, that's just not going to be possible. Hollywood never sleeps, and the title of this episode is Everything, Everywhere, All at Once, Except a Day Off, and we're just blessed to have a day off with my guest. Before I jump into bringing her back and reintroducing you, if you haven't listened to her first episode that she had with us last year, I wanted to talk briefly about a couple things I've been watching. If you've been listening to this podcast long enough, you know where my tastes lie. I'm a huge, huge fan of Apple TV, the streaming platform, mostly because of the studio, also because of some just great shows that they have year after year after year. And they've got two bangers, two total badass shows on right now. One, of course, is Widow's Bay. I've talked about it before. It is peak television. I swear it's like Parks and Recreation meets Stephen King. It's that funny. It's that macabre. It's very good. It's got kind of a Twin Peaks type humor to it, but it's a little bit like Midnight Mass, the television series that Mike Flanagan did, which is very incredible and just very atmospheric. This is a great show. If you haven't started watching this, what is wrong with you? Get in there. Let's go. Watch this show. Last week's episode was just hilarious and funny, and I'm on Team Patricia from now on. So if you've been watching the show, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. The other show has just dropped. I need to watch the second episode. The first episode was so heavy, I had to pause and kind of come up for air. And that is Cape Fear. Cape Fear with bless you. Bless you. My guest is standing by. Cape Fear, and that has Javier Bardem is playing the Max Cady role. Now, you might remember that there was an earlier film version, I think in the 50s or 60s, with Robert Mitchum. He played this terrible person, Max Cady. And then Martin Scorsese remade it with Robert De Niro playing Max Cady. And that was all kinds of horrifying because it had Jessica Lange and Nick Nolte and other people in it. It was just such a great and terrifying film. And now they've made a short series, and it seems like every 30 years they want to put an iteration of this out there. But now Javier Bardem, as if he didn't scare the hell out of me already in No Country for Old Men, now he's playing Max Cady, and it's a completely different kind of psychopath. And Patrick Wilson, you'll know his face, you may not know the name as well, but he plays the husband. And my gosh, I'm going to kill myself. I can't remember the name of the actress. She's been in everything from Arrival to oh, I'm gonna kick myself. That's all right. She's the they've done some role reversals here, and so she plays the main attorney, and it's produced by Martin Scorsese and Steven Spielberg. So they've both had their fingerprints on this. I think it's going to be excellent. It might be the true detective show of this year. I mean, it's knocked it out of the park as far as the first episode goes. Anyway, those two shows are fantastic, but I want to shift into something a little more tonally upbeat, a little funny, because my guest is one of the funniest guests I've ever had on this podcast. Um, she is an actress, she is a writer, she is a producer, she is a terrific human being. She is so hilarious. Jennifer Levinson returns to the Fixate and Binge podcast. Thank you for being with us.
Thanks for having me here and for all the praise. Wow.
Thank you. Now,
Follow me around wherever.
yeah, I mean, if I could, you would be like the perfect co-host to have on this thing because I could just sit and listen to your anecdotes and all the stories that you can tell and some of your funny perspectives. I follow you on the socials, and you've got some of the most hilarious social media posts,
Thank
which
you.
which are good. Sometimes we have to keep our comedy muscles pliant and loose a little bit, and I like that. And I'll always be thankful because you introduced me to Heston,
That's
and
right.
that has just been a gift that keeps on giving. I'm so excited for him. And anyway, welcome back to the Fixate and Binge podcast. Last year, you came on to talk about your film that you wrote, produced, acted, starred in, and that was Trust. And that still remains one of the finest independent films I've ever seen. It balances grief and comedy in such a satisfying way, and I really enjoyed that. And you were fantastic. Your direction, not so much your direction, because I know you had Almog directing that, but your script was hilarious. Your characters felt fully fleshed out. If anyone is looking for this film, they can catch it, I think, pretty much anywhere now, right?
Yeah, it's on all the streamers on Prime, Tubi, uh, iTunes. You can watch it whenever, wherever.
That's awesome. Yeah, this film was made in 2022. It's called Trust. It's not the only film called Trust, so just be careful. I think the year it was released is very important to differentiate it from the other films with a similar name. But you've also done a lot of short films. I've been looking at your IMDb page, and I did watch one of your recent shorts, and that was Taboo.
Yes.
And that I watch these horror shorts, Jennifer, and I always think I'd love to see a full-length movie out of that.
That's the goal. I didn't actually write that one. I was brought on to produce, and part of the deal I made on coming onto that project was if you bring me on to produce, you also have to cast me in it. So I didn't give him much of an option.
Yeah.
It's funny. I feel like I come from a comedy background, but I gravitate towards this heavy horror drama type stuff. Um, and Almog kind of negotiated a similar thing of like, I'm okay making a short if there's a vision for a bigger world. So we kind of made it as a standalone piece, but also a proof of concept for a feature. And we've had a really fun run with it. I think it's a solid, impactful horror. And obviously, I'm sure you've seen Obsession, but that has inspired everyone, including us, to try and like reconfigure the feature world in a more contained way so we can make it. In my mind, I'm like, can we be on set yesterday? I'm like ready to go and make the next thing. So yeah, the shorts are nice to just keep the flexes moving and practice of filmmaking, but the goal is always to develop it further.
Well, I think that's absolutely right. Last week's episode, when you referenced Obsession, you talked about how, I mean, in a way, it's almost like this is a spec script or like a short project that can hopefully be turned into, or at least show an investor possibilities of what a full length feature could look like. My podcast episode last week really just talked a little bit about the phenomenon of the horror genre, where it's going. Of course, there's been some exciting development. This has been an exciting year for horror in general. You got Sinners winning Oscars. You've got Weapons winning Oscars. You've got Obsession. You've got Backrooms. You've got I mean, it seems like Hollywood is willing to kind of think outside the box and go where there's an interesting concept. And it feels like the most original and interesting, breathtakingly original ideas coming out of Hollywood right now are firmly in the horror genre. And I hear too many people just bitch and moan how Hollywood has run out of ideas. And I guess maybe they're right in some respects, but I kind of feel like the next time I hear that, I'm going to say, except for horror. When was the last time you saw a film like Longlegs? When was the last time you
Right.
saw a film like Bring Her Back? When was the last time you saw a film like Obsession or Backrooms or a short film like Taboo? Um, so I'm excited. I would love to see Taboo in a bigger um,
Yeah, we're currently
iteration.
trying to get financing, and it's such a catch-22 with financing. The one thing I think people are more willing to invest in horror because it brings people into seats. Obviously, my first film was a drama, which everyone was like, dramas don't make money, which I have this problem where if people tell me I can't do something, I have to prove them wrong. So obviously, I had to make a drama, but even just seeing some of the horror out there right now, most of the stuff I've been writing has fit into the horror genre recently, for multiple reasons. One, it's the most sellable. Two, I just think there's so much fun you can have. There's so many subgenres to play with.
Absolutely. I mean, there's folk horror, and then there's psychological horror, and yeah, there's so many different offshoots from it. Um, it's really strange. I've been looking back at. I did like a mid-year check-in. I haven't released it, but I've been like, okay, we're 6 months into 2026. What are the best films of the year? And I'm like, half of the films of my top 10 are horror or horror adjacent films.
Right.
And the only thing I can think of is horror is having a great moment right now in Hollywood. And I would love to see Taboo turned into something much bigger. And I hope anyone listening to this knows where they can find Taboo. Is Taboo, I think, on YouTube?
Yeah, we just posted on YouTube. We did a small festival run and went to Telluride Horror and Brooklyn
Whew.
Horror and Cinequest, and it's so fun to watch it with an audience. But yeah, hopefully next year we'll be on the set of the feature.
Oh my gosh, fingers crossed, fingers
Yeah.
crossed. And that's the thing that continually surprises me about you is that I watched Trust, of course. I've watched it a couple times, and you do drama extremely well. You so well that you might be surprised to know that Jennifer got her talents and training done at Second City, which is a famed comedy institution that will, they pull for Saturday Night Live from Second City and these types of drama. I'm not selling the Second City very well, Jennifer. I'm sorry,
No,
but
you're
they
selling it.
but they pull from these types of institutions because they have such a rich tradition of how to do comedy right and how to teach it and how to engender it, and so I'm watching you in Trust, and you're just such a great dramatic actress. But there are moments of levity, there are nuggets of humor peppered throughout your film, and so I can see how funny you are. And then I watch you in Taboo, and you're like a scream queen, and I'm like, it's just another facet to your spectrum of what you can play, and I think that's actually really nice to see your
Right.
range in a
I
horror
think
range.
the best dramatic actors have some sort of comedy background because I feel like comedy, you really got to nail the like delivery, the amount of time you wait between lines. I tried stand-up comedy and I was real bad. Uh, but even that, it's like when I go to stand-up comedy shows, I feel bad for the performers when no one laughs. So I feel like I have to laugh for them and like give them a thumb up because I feel like you got to be bad in order to get good, and
Yeah,
it's such a painful learning curve to get there, but yeah, it's a very helpful skill to come from a comedy background. It's very applicable across the board.
it sounds like the type of foundation you got to have. Because one of my questions that I had for you is, you're living in Hollywood, is that correct?
Nearby Hollywood. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah. West
Hollywood
side of LA.
adjacent, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Um, and so a lot of people, I mean, whether you're watching a Mulholland Drive about David Lynch's kind of dark noirish film, which is surreal and it's pulls from so many different genres. But one of the genres is that Hollywood is a brutal town. If you know, if you go to Hollywood or you're trying to make it in the entertainment industry in California in the Hollywood area, it can be a heartless and gut wrenching experience to try and make your dreams come true. And I think the question I had for you is how important has having a good sense of humor and having a background in comedy helped you navigate the ups and downs of
Great
Hollywood?
question. It is a brutal industry. I think improv, it's something that started as when you get an agent in LA,
Yeah.
there are these go-to places that they expect you to have on on your resume. As an actor, you need to have an improv class from like Second City Groundlings, iOS, one of those, and then like a commercial class. They have certain teachers that they look for on your resume. And so it started off as just kind of a tick the box, get it on the resume thing. I found that I've had to redefine what success means to me in terms of this industry, and that improv and like having a comedy background has opened up doors for work that's kind of industry adjacent. Like I pay my bills doing a lot of on-camera hosting, and
Yeah.
I think the reason I am good at it and able to sustain myself with that is because of improv. So I think as an actor or any sort of creative in LA, you have to be okay with working gigs that are not your dream gig and somehow still maintain the creativity. I think it becomes this seesaw where I see people who will take on a job to support themselves for what they really want to do, but then like how do you even find the time to do what you really want to do? So comedy, improv, in my experience, has opened up just a lot of opportunity that feels like it's still within the creative space. So I'm not burnt out when I get home. It's like I no longer feel like I maybe need to go to an improv class, but I'm flexing the muscle when I'm doing my day job. And I'm able to like find humor in the disappointments.
I think that's so genius that you had to kind of redefine for yourself what success is. Well, listen, I wanted to also ask a little bit about you've done some brand work for, if I got this right, Truly Beauty, Kitsch, and then one of my favorites because they had the funniest ad campaign was Poopery. And
Yeah, so it's funny you bring that up because the improv I think has opened up these doors for me. I don't know if you are on TikTok at all, but
I am, yes.
yeah, TikTok shop is a huge thing. And after college, I started doing BuzzFeed videos, improv, and I feel like all of that has kind of played into this career path I've been able to find for myself, which is on camera hosting for different brands. And I basically get to be on camera every day. And, you have different camera angles and you have a rig system. So I have a producer who gets to play around with that, but I'm also able to have my own keyboard system where I can like switch the cameras. So
Wow.
yeah, I pay my bills when I'm not writing or acting by doing on-camera hosting gigs. Like this morning, I was on camera for Truly Beauty, and then um, tomorrow Poopery, which is really funny. I never in my life. My dad was a GI doctor, and I always joke that I'm a nepo baby who inherited GI issues. So it's like, of course, I would be the person to be on Poopery. They just started doing live on-camera interactive content, and in order to do it well, you got to be quick on your feet, and it's this balance between like um, I don't know, kind of talking in a comedic way. You have people who are live commenting that you're engaging with, and you also have to be able to take criticism from strangers who out of nowhere will say the most out of pocket things. And I just find it's a fun day job to have that helps me flex that improv gene. Although every time I do poopery, I'm like, ugh, every guy I've dated is watching me on here talk about how you should like spray before you go and drop it like it's hot in that toilet.
Oh my gosh. Oh my goodness. Yeah, that the Poopery ads, and then there was one called the Squatty Potty.
Yeah.
Those two ads, by the way, we my family, we buy Poopery. We spray it before we go. I mean, it's
Yeah. It
uh
works. It's
it
popular.
it
But let me tell
yeah.
you, it's hard to sell it on camera. People do not want to admit that they poop. It's a phenomenon. I'm like, can't we all just admit that we are pooping? Is it that hard? And I'm sitting there begging people like, please buy some. But luckily, I'm very lucky to have a base rate, and then certain companies I work with will give me a bonus if I sell a certain amount.
Yeah.
So it feels like I'm doing commercial work almost every day. And sometimes I'm not sure if you've heard about the commercial scene in LA right now, but it's pretty bleak in that like these huge brands are doing non-union
Oh,
and like doing very low buyouts. So they're having you go to these auditions, go to the callbacks, you work a long day, and then you don't see a lot of money. And I'm like, this is kind of in that space, and I'm earning significantly more, and I'm still working with brands. So whenever I do these types of gigs, I'm always in the back of my head thinking of how I can expand it beyond the work I'm doing. Like maybe I could pitch them a commercial idea or like a little travel show and see how there could be some integrative thing there. So, yeah, the producing mindset and the improv all play into it a little bit.
sounds like the good marriage. It sounds like the peanut butter and jelly of what
Yeah.
you're doing. They go well together. And as you mentioned it, it would be great for you to be on a travel show and go to different places because I think you would just be hilarious and fun to watch just
I
going
actually
around.
I partnered with Marriott, which apparently they are called Marriott. I partnered with them
Wow.
years ago to do like a Snapchat commercial where they like flew me to Berlin and I helped produce and write this commercial. And
Wow.
I got to bring my assistant and got paid. So stuff like that, I feel like if you're moving to LA, you have to be open to the most random things because you never know where it will lead. Like that came because I did some BuzzFeed videos. They put my Snapchat handle. I contacted a Snapchat agency and then I pitched this idea, and all of a sudden I was in Berlin. So,
Not bad.
yeah, not bad. And there,
Yeah.
there are times when people will see me on these streams and they'll be like, "Oh, look at you," and like try and make a dig about, "Oh, now you're doing this on camera work," and I'm like, whether you're working on camera or you're bagging groceries, like you got to do what you got to do to survive out here, and it's hard. So it's nice to be able to make money while you're hustling.
Yeah, when I was living in England for grad school, I remember I went to go see a production of Henry V, and not the guy playing the main part, but he was playing a sizable supporting role, maybe Northumberland, one of those English lords that was doing something important for England. Uh, and about 6 months after the play was done, I saw him driving a grocery store truck, like an Amazon delivery truck, and I mean. I hadn't thought about that. I'm like, no, no, no. He had a family. He had to support his family, and acting is not a guaranteed thing. There is no tenure in acting. It's it's a little bit like George of the Jungle grabbing a vine. You have to be think while you've got hold of one vine, you need to be thinking about the next vine that you need to grab so that you can stay moving. And I've had another actor on that does a lot of independent, low budget type films, and he's got a huge resume. None of this stuff is going to be blockbuster material. He knows that, but his important thing is I like a fish that needs to keep swimming to live. I do whatever I got to do to stay working because that's what I need. That's my oxygen. And so there's no question on the end of this, Jennifer. I'm just making an observation that
No, I so agree with you. I think it's easy to judge people for the roles they take, even at a more successful level.
yeah,
I see actors who are series regulars, then people are questioning because they took some bad movie. And
yeah,
like I know people who you think you're gonna make it to this one tier and then it's gonna be easier, but it's a constant hustle, which is why I've had to personally redefine success and kind of
yeah.
uh, take on other avenues. Like now I would say I lean more into writing because it feels like I have more control over it versus acting. And then
Yeah.
if I write something I can act in, even better, you know?
Yeah, that's the gift that really keeps on giving. Because then, yeah, that's I have to agree. So I'm looking off camera at my notes here
Oh, you're
because
good. I'm looking at my second dog who's a little bit
oh,
problematic.
what kind of dogs you got there?
Maltipoo, and then this one, I don't know. This one, I rescued both of them, but this one's a new street rodent who is like
Oh,
very sweet, but they're both very demanding.
I'll bet. I'll bet. I've got a little Boston Terrier, and he's very
Oh,
demanding. I call him Frodo.
Oh,
And
cute.
yeah, my goodness, he can clear a room whenever he. I wish there was a potpourri for dogs because
They actually do. They have
no,
those. I'm not even kidding. They
seriously,
have a whole line of pet products.
do so. Can I feed it to my dog or put it in his
No,
food, or
so
do I
it
have
would
to like
be
spray it?
you spray it in the air and like on their crate and stuff.
No way. Okay, we have to talk after this podcast because I need
Yeah.
to figure out how I can get it. That's great.
Yeah.
Have I have to ask about just the audition process because for those people that might be listening that are either in the industry or thinking about getting started, I think your personal experiences, and I know you've had so many, is just illuminating on this topic. Is have you ever had an audition that you thought was a disaster, and then surprise of all surprises, you ended up booking it? Has that happened?
You know, it's every single time that I have a bad audition, I get a call back and get closer to booking it. I don't
Yeah,
know if I've ever had one where I was like, whenever I'm like, yes, I nailed it, crickets. And I'm like, maybe they didn't have callbacks.
yeah,
Like, I nailed that. Um, but I've definitely had some. There was one forever ago that I had for the TV show American Crime. And I remember the casting director was trying to set me up for success. And it was a big role. It was one of the biggest roles I've ever gone out for.
yeah.
And she was like, I just want you to be soft. I'm going to whisper and then I want you to hear me. And I could not, I swear to God, I was like, I'm deaf. I cannot hear a word she is saying. I'm trying to respond. I was like leaning in. It was this juicy drama. And I'm just like, speaking and I'm like, I could be interrupting her. I have not a clue because
Sure.
she's whispering so quietly. And I walked out and I was like, wow, I'm never seeing that casting director again. And then I ended up getting a call back. And then I ended up having like three additional auditions. I went
Yeah.
so far and then I didn't end up booking it. But I remember being in the room with, I wish I could remember the producer's name, but they're like huge producers where I was like shaking. I could not believe that I was in this room after the casting person. I couldn't hear a thing she said, but she, I think, set me up for success in some way. But I feel like that's the industry oftentimes is, I ended up seeing who got the role, and she was this petite blonde girl who had a completely different vibe than me.
Yeah.
And sometimes you make it really far and then it has nothing to do with talent. I mean, that's most of the time. Like
Right.
you realize so many people can act, but like maybe you didn't look like the casting person's uncle or whatever. And or maybe and typically you don't even realize that the person on the screen is maybe a second or third choice too. So it means like
Right.
where do you stay in the realm? But I feel like that's typically what happens when I think I crushed it. Nothing. Especially in commercials. Oh, and then I had one commercial audition where I was going in to do like some sewing thing. And then the direction for the callback was like wear a bikini. And I was like, that's random, but I'm gonna do what I'm told. But they accidentally casting sent me the wrong breakdown. So I showed up in a bikini doing the sewing thing. And they were like, why are you in that? And I was like, don't know. I'm doing what you told me to do, man. So I didn't book that. But yeah, it's a lot of I feel like what people don't realize is they think I'm going to move to LA, get a ton of auditions,
Yeah.
and just that is not the case. Like whenever I get an audition for a TV show or a legitimate movie, it's just so few and far between. The majority of auditions are verticals, commercials that are non-union, and then, an occasional something else in between. But I try to do for a while there. I was resistant to verticals because I felt like I was pigeonholed in the BuzzFeed
Well,
space.
if I can interrupt you really briefly,
Yeah,
because maybe some of my listeners might not know what verticals are. That's industry speak. They may not be familiar with that term.
yeah. So
What?
there are these micro dramas that
Oh,
are mostly not the best writing. They're like minute-long episodes where it's a system where people can watch one episode, then it's paid 99 cents to watch the next one. And apparently there are people out there that watch them, but the writing is like, how dare you sleep with my sister's uncle's best friend's boyfriend twice removed in front of your mother? That like I'm pretty sure I said that line in an audition once. And I'm just like for a while there, I was like, I'm never auditioning for these.
Yeah.
But there are now actors making a ton of money, and a lot of actors too are telling me that they're on these sets with filmmakers who've gone to Sundance and Tribeca who are
Wow.
also making money because that's the only place they can get work right now. So I've tried not to be as resistant and try to take those auditions seriously, but that's something else to note. I think a lot of people want to maintain the art of it, and sometimes you're just at the end of the day, it is show business, and you're having to take on gigs that don't necessarily excite you, and maybe are there's a potential to pigeonhole you in an arena, but you also need to pay the bills. So it's a catch 22. But the most recent thing I booked, I had gone out for like a sizable role in a movie, and I thought I had a really good audition and callback. And then I ended up getting one line in the movie, and they
Oh,
were like, "Does she want to take this role?" And you know what? I said yes because I got to be on set for several days, and I'm really glad I did. It was so much fun, and a lot of my reactions are in the movie. They wanted someone who had really funny reactions, so I'm
yeah.
like, great. And I found out on set the person who was like the EP of the movie was basically like, "You crushed it. I cast someone who looks a little more like the person it was based off of, but I wanted you in the film." So I think actors also need to be willing to embrace the idea of no small roles, only small actors, because,
Yeah.
I still got paid for those days. My agents were still happy, and I have one line and I crushed it.
That's really good because there's so many stories in Hollywood about the perfect guy or the perfect actor or actress, whatever. I mean, that walks into the audition and they're like, "This wasn't what we were looking for," but there's something so memorable about this audition or about their presence reading for that part, and they remember it, and then they cast later. And the story I can think of is Rambo 2. I think it was Rambo. This is such a dude story. Dolph Lundgren, an unknown Dolph Lundgren, back when he was dating Grace Jones, auditioned for the main bad guy in Rambo 2 or whatever. And they didn't cast him as that. They cast him as this random henchman. But Stallone remembered that guy. And so when he made Rocky 4, he made him the main Russian boxer bad guy. And the rest is history because he ended up building a career off of that. And that's kind of how it works. I feel that way when I watch Catherine Hahn in Step Brothers. She has a relatively small part. I mean, it's memorable, but now look at her career. I mean, it's just
Yeah,
blown up.
you never know. I mean, I was just thinking in this moment too. I had a different director that I had a call back for, didn't book it, and a year later he contacted me to be in something else. So you never know.
Yeah.
It's all it all plays into something. I feel
Well,
like.
on a much more humbler scale, I remember doing this podcast with you last year, and I remember just thinking, I would like to have her come back. I've got to get you back on the podcast
Oh,
because,
thanks.
and if I had it my way, like I said, I mean, I'm not kidding. I'd love to have you on as often as you could make it because I think the conversation with you is just so interesting and it's so fun and that's one of the things that it's hard to teach presence and it's hard to teach memorability. It's just hard without it looking forced. But you have that.
Thanks, you're
You,
hired.
yeah, thank you. Yeah, you have it. So whatever it is, it's moxie or whatever, or chutzpah, you've got it. And so
Crazy, insanity, delusion.
all at once,
All
everything,
right.
everywhere, all at once. You
Yeah.
you got it all. Um, so I wanted to jump into something else a little bit differently here. It's the fact that you have such versatility. You'll wear different hats depending on what you're working on. Sometimes you're a producer, sometimes you're a writer, sometimes you're the actress, and sometimes you're all three. Um, what what role do you like the most? I think you already answered this. It sounds like writing is,
I love acting when I get the chance to do it,
yeah,
but and everyone has a different experience out here when it comes to auditioning and getting on set, but it's so hard to get to that point. And even if I have scripts that aren't necessarily going anywhere, it feels like I'm working towards something. So I have focused in a lot on writing,
yeah.
and dependent on, I have too many writing partners. I had to recently sit down with one and be like, I need to put a pin in this, not because I don't care, but because I literally cannot like I can't make the hours in a day to focus on this and the other 8 writing partners. But
Right.
I have a few scripts that I'm really excited about. I have a literary manager now, and it's funny
Wow.
because when I first brought him on, he'd seen Trust. I wrote a pilot with one of my writing partners that is like an Olympic sex comedy YA type situation that I think is perfect, but there's so many similar shows popping up now, and it's really hard to get pilots off the ground. So he was like, focus more on features.
Hmm.
And he was like, you can send me features. I'm not going to fire you. Like if something is a first draft, send it to me. I'm here. I'm on your team. But then every time it feels like I'm cutting myself every time I send him a script because I send it to him and then I sit there like he's going to rip it a new one. And then he gives notes. And then I'm like, great, I should quit. I should literally run in front of a car and end it right now because what the hell am I doing with my life? Um, and so it gets me in my head a little bit with certain scripts, and it's been a process of that. But the most recent script that I co-wrote with a friend, Cole Woods, that Almog helped do the story by on,
Yeah.
was the first script that I've ever sent him that he was like, this is great, no notes. And I'm like, whew, I feel so relieved.
Wow.
But I'm really excited about it. It's a romantic thriller. We've just submitted to a bunch of script competitions like Austin, and hopefully right now it's with Allmog reps, and hopefully they'll like it as much as we do. And it's weird being a writer because there's so many different a writer who also wants to be a filmmaker. There are some writers that are like, I wrote the script, I want to sell it and make the money.
And then
But
walk away, right? Let you
right.
guys run with it. Yeah.
Yeah, and there are some scripts that I feel that way on where I'm like, I don't care, do what you want with it. But this romantic thriller is one of the ones that I'm like, oh, it would be great if we could make this. So not only are we pitching the script, but we're pitching a team attached, which for some can be harder, others not. But then you bring in the producer hat where it's like, I have to come up with a sort of budget and what does that look like and which production companies would fund that kind of budget. So
Right.
yeah, it's a whole process. I was just texting the team being like, well, now I want to be on set like last week. So what do I do? And they were like, focus on other projects. Are you working on anything else? And I'm like, yeah, I still want to be on set. Let's go.
What's great about that, though, is that it feels like that because you already have your legs underneath you and you have already written, acted, and produced an award-winning film like 2022's Trust, you are good. I mean, I would feel like the money is a safer investment to look at your budget, to look at your proposal. I would think that that would be more attractive to a producer. It feels like it feels a lot riskier to take some YouTuber who's only 20 and say, "Here's millions of dollars, make back rooms."
Yeah, I know. Which is cool. I think what's happening now is these filmmakers, everyone is now like, wow, we can do that too. Whereas I'm looking at it like, oh, this is the exception to the rule. It's awesome. I'm inspired. I want to do this. But you would think it would be a lot easier to get funding for the second one after you've made the first. And I think it's a huge waiting game. I'm the least patient human in the whole world. So like even before this script was done, the romantic thriller, it's called Eternum, but it basically came to be because Almog got married, and literally a day after he came back from the wedding that I attended, I was like, can we get coffee and talk projects, or is it too soon? And he was like, I mean, yeah. And I'm like, great, congrats on your marriage. Also, like, why aren't we on set? We should make a short. We got to make another short. And by the end of the coffee, it was, cool, we're making a feature. I don't know how we got from point A to point B. And then I was like, I'm already picking out Crafty. I already know we're having on lunch day 3, you know?
Yeah.
So that's how this feature came to be. And Almog was getting ready to like go on his honeymoon and leave town. So we had this general idea, and someone else from our college had reached out to him to write something for him to direct. And we were like, what if we combine forces?
Yeah.
Since you're traveling, you can be involved in like the story, but we'll write the script. So that's kind of how this most recent one came to be. I don't even know how I got on this tangent about this script, but
That's okay.
I'm very excited about it. And yeah, I feel like I don't know how to relax, clearly. So I keep the hustle alive, but Yeah, that's how things get done.
Well, it reminds me of that line from Finding Nemo, voiced by Ellen DeGeneres, the little blue Dory fish. Just keep swimming, just keep swimming.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and that's what it is. I mean, that's I certainly have a sense of that hosting a weekly podcast for over almost 4 years straight now. And so there hasn't been one week this entire year that I've missed an episode. And so,
Wow, good for you.
well, it's a sprint, and
Sure.
it sometimes feels like a sprint, but I'm just trying. I mean, I think the challenge, and maybe this is something you can relate to creatively, is the challenge is trying to not just throw anything against the wall, but to really come up with dynamic ideas. And so my challenge is trying to find fascinating guests like yourself or fascinating topics, because I don't just want to phone it in. I want to actually do my best. And I think maybe that is the creative challenge of what you're doing is, yes, staying busy is important because it's kind of the oxygen for your creativity, but also coming up with dynamic, fun, or fascinating or interesting ideas is also the critical component. So,
Yeah. And I think I see a lot of creatives dedicate themselves to one project, which is you kind of have to
yeah.
do when you're in production. It's kind of what I did on Trust, but I've I've seen some people who have the best scripts. Like one of my friends was like top of Blacklist and got a big
Wow.
agent, and their script's going nowhere, and it gets really disheartening. So for me personally, it feels like I instead of having all my eggs in one basket, I'm like hands in 100 different things because if this doesn't work, then one of these other seven has to. There's no route in which I can fail at this point because something has to give, or I'm going to die trying. Uh,
See, I
that's
love that. I love it. It's kind of like buying lottery tickets. It's like I could play just one set of numbers, or I can play a bunch of numbers.
Yeah, it is
Let's,
funny to talk to people outside of entertainment. Like my dad, I'll tell him like, "Oh, this big producer's looking at the script." And I'm all excited because I think you got to redefine success and the little things are a win, you know?
yeah,
Even if like you send a script to a production company and they're like, "We loved it. It's not right for us, but what else do you have that fits this genre?" To me, that's a win. So
yeah.
I'll tell my dad about that and he'll just be like, "Why should I care? They didn't buy it. I don't care." And I'm like, "Thank you so much. I really appreciate that."
Some people don't understand.
Yeah, they'll never understand.
Yeah,
Like as I got off the stage at CineQuest premiering my first feature and it was a sold out house, my dad pats me on the back and goes, "There's still law school, you know?"
I gotta love it for parents and family. There's nobody that can keep you grounded.
Right,
It's
exactly.
quite like, which, if you haven't seen Trust, I'm going to circle back to it. That is certainly one of the themes. Is your family will always keep you grounded with reality. Oh my goodness. So one of the things I wanted to ask you before we let you go, because I know your time is important to you. Could you maybe you've already shared probably one of the weirdest auditions in that you wore a bikini to an audition that it turns out was a miscommunication. So that must have been really interesting. I'd be horrified if I was told to wear a Speedo, mostly because of my corpulence, folks. Body built by Taco Bell. So, but can you maybe share something with our listeners about possibly the weirdest audition location or something that is just out of the norm?
Yeah, I don't know if I've had necessarily. Oh, I mean, one audition so this is weirdest audition location and then just a separate weirdest audition. But one audition I had, they put the wrong address. So I showed up to a diner and I thought I saw the casting directors. I was like, I guess we're doing like a sit down. And I just like went and sat at a booth with these women. I was like, "Hi, nice to meet you in person." And they were like, "Who are you?" And then I realized that it was just like two random women eating at a diner. But luckily, all these other actors were coming into the diner being like, "Where's the audition?" It was like a space two doors down, but that was really mortifying to sit down with these two and be like, "Am I allowed to have a fry or what?" That wasn't cute. So that was the weirdest that was another miscommunication, but probably the weirdest audition in college. I don't know if this is like I don't know what this was. This was a weird moment in college life where my friends and I would pretend that we could rap and like freestyle rap, and clearly I couldn't. But like after a couple drinks, I would think that I could. And I ended up having some improv audition that involved freestyle rapping, and I faked it well enough to get a call back, and in the callback, Wayne Brady was there, who is like the king of
Oh
improv,
yeah.
rapping, and it was like I get really starstruck. So like I I just I could any bad skill I may have had was out the door. I don't think I could speak English. I bombed it actually. This is one where I bombed. I
Oh.
think I tried to block this one out of my head. And then the next day I went to a workout class and he was on the treadmill next to me and I was like, thanks for the reminder. This is great. Yeah. Actually, now that we're talking about auditions again, I'm like, oh yeah, I've had so many bad auditions. I remember I had a voiceover audition at the place that did BoJack Horseman, but sometimes they'll try to make things really secretive. So like the info was vague. And again, I'm so starstruck. I walked in and saw a cardboard cutout of BoJack, and that was my favorite show. And yeah, real bad audition. I don't know if I spoke words. And if it's a voiceover, I think I just stood there like, not you. So those were probably weirdest locations and auditions.
That's incredible. I have a starstruck problem as well. I I went to go see a play in England, and John Lithgow is in it,
Oh,
and
cool.
he was playing Malvolio in Twelfth Night, and afterwards I went to a pub to meet some friends who'd seen the play, and I was going to meet them, and standing right behind me, waiting for his turn to order drinks, was John Lithgow,
Oh,
and I remember I turned my head and looked at him, and I went, "That's John Lithgow,"
yeah.
and I immediately was like, I couldn't even tell him great job tonight. I just kind of like just slunk away sheepishly.
That's
Just
me
kind
on
of
my own film shoot. Even with like the actors I cast, I had to have someone walk me over to say hi because I was so starstruck. I got to work on it.
the actor that played your dad. I had seen him in a Mortal Kombat movie.
Yeah, he was Johnny Cage.
The original Johnny Cage. So when I
Yeah.
saw him in your movie, I'm like, that's Johnny Cage.
Yeah.
That's I mean, I feel a little old and dorky, but I remember in the 90s watching Johnny Cage and
Yeah.
playing your
Yeah.
dad.
My dad. Now he's his dad.
Yeah,
Before he was Star.
that's really cool. Can I ask real quick, what is the best, and we're going to go best and worst if that's okay, but what is the
Uh-huh.
best acting advice you have ever received, if one comes to mind?
Get your heart broken, which is so random. I remember when
Oh,
someone told that to me and I was like, okay. But I feel like it unlocks a whole slew of emotions that you didn't know you can access. Um, and at least in my experience acting, I like to think of like specific moments or memories to try and tap into a feeling. And um, I feel like there's so much depth in heartbreak. Like the spectrum of emotions that you can access is really
wow.
helpful. Because
That,
you hear the standard like hit your mark, show up
sure.
on time, all those play into it. But I think most actors who are seeking advice know how to do the fundamentals. So get get your heart broken. Don't be afraid to fall in love.
That is, I'm going to be thinking about that for a while now because that is brilliant advice. That is just because it really is live a life,
Yeah,
have a lived experience, and getting your heart broken is one of the greatest and the most bittersweet experiences you can have.
yeah.
Wow. Well, what's the worst acting advice you've ever received, if you can think of anything?
Ugh. I mean, I got some real bad acting advice in college from my theater professors. Um, what was the worst piece of advice? Um, trying to like make yourself bigger on a film set. Like if you have a co-star role, you can build it into something else. Take that line and like drag it out, which is the
Mm,
exact opposite of what you're supposed to do. And will make sure you never get hired again, is
yeah.
trying to make more of a moment out of this one thing that you are there to like serve the story. You're not there to stand out. But I think a lot of professors or acting teachers will try to make it seem like if you have this one line, it's your one chance to really nail it. But like the people who stand out the most are like being subtle and like being natural and not trying to take away from what's happening in the scene, like understand the story. So I think that's bad advice to try and like milk your line.
Yeah, and it's so unprofessional in theater and in film work. But I mean, my background's mostly in theater, and you're upstaging your co-stars. I've had some experiences. I've done about 50 plays on stage. I'm it's an old life. I was swashbuckling. I was more adventurous looking. I'm I'm very much a dad bod middle-aged dude now, but I remember doing a play with a guy. We were rehearsing. His character was a German doctor, and it was Arsenic and Old Lace, classic. And in rehearsals, he had kind of a slight German accent. But by the time the audience started giggling during the first week, the Germanness went through the roof. And then he adopted a tone of voice. And the next thing I know, he was mugging, he was scene stealing. And
Uh-oh.
there's no nice, and our poor director wouldn't rein him in.
Yeah.
So you look
Yeah,
at it and you just go,
that also happens at auditions for commercials where actors will line up and they'll be like, "What do you do on a Sunday? What do you?" They just ask
yeah,
questions to get to know your personality. And my biggest frustration is where there's that one actor who will be like, "Oh, me too," for every question and try and answer it. And usually by that time, casting is going through so many people that they don't intervene. And there have been times I've been wanting to step up and just be like, "Dude, no one asked. You already answered. It's my turn now. I'm answering what I do on a Sunday."
yeah.
I sit on the couch with my dog. Let me tell them.
Perfect. I have to ask. I think I might know one possible answer for this, only because you posted about it, and I was like, as soon as you posted it, I was like, oh, you'd be perfect, but for that. But what would be your dream role right now? Like if the phone rang and they said, Jennifer, I've got some good news. You've got X part. You've got this part. What would it be?
This might be a silly answer, but I love Squid Games, and I know they're making an American version of it with Fincher, and
Yeah.
they planted some of the actors in the version that just ended, and I'm like, wow, if I could be on that set working with these actors. I know people have their skepticisms about how this version will turn out, as do I, but I'm like, that sounds so cool. There's so many fun roles. So to me, it feels attainable and realistic because of how many roles there are,
Yeah.
and like different characters. I love ensemble pieces and anything to get physical and like uh, in that kind of a true crime commentary realm.
Yeah.
So I would play a girl who gets shot in the first episode. I don't care. If I could go
Yeah.
great. I would scream and literally throw a party for myself over that.
Well, I think you'd be fantastic for that. But the show you mentioned, and as soon as you said it, I was like, I could see you doing it. I could see you crushing it. Was Jury Duty.
Oh my gosh. I would love to be on jury duty.
Yeah.
Nathan Fielder, I don't know if you've watched any of his stuff, but he is
Yeah.
like my idol. And I feel like that fits into that genre. It's just like people trolling. And at my heart core, I feel like my calling on earth is to be a troll. So if I could get paid to do it, and be in on the joke, oh my gosh, my life would be made. Like I feel like the only reason I ever leave my house and like go out on a Saturday night is to just like make up a life that doesn't exist. If a man tries to hit on me, I'm just talking to him about this world where I like one time pretended I was a manager and my friend was a comedian and we were on an European tour. And by the end of the night, everyone was asking for photos with her. And I'm like, I live for that, I want to be that, yeah. So that's also a great show. Oh my gosh, I would literally pay the production. If you're listening, pay you to be in
Yeah.
your show. Come on, guys.
And
You'll make money.
you'd be fantastic in it. You'd be so good. Well, listen, Jennifer, thank you so much for your time
Thanks
on
for
this
having
Sun.
me.
Yeah, it's the pleasure is all mine. And for my listeners, you're such a fun and interesting and talented creative, and actress and producer and a writer. And I wish nothing but success for you. I will be championing, reposting, celebrating, praising, high-fiving anything that I see you do because it's deserved. I know that you have a hustle and you understand the grind, and you're doing it. And I think the thing that's coming, and I'm singing your praises in front of you. I have a hard time when people give me compliments, so I always just cringe. But I hope this isn't an issue. But I mean, honestly, so many people will go to Los Angeles, sorry, and they will have their dreams crushed, or they'll have this idea of what success looks like. And you seem to have kind of found you've given yourself permission to adjust what that means to you, so that you know what I mean. That's so healthy to do that. Sometimes we set for ourselves boundaries that are unattainable, or boundaries where we don't control the variables. You know, my story is I wrote a PhD thesis and I had to defend my thesis with a professor who teaches at Oxford University in England. And I did not get awarded my PhD. And for years I felt like a failure until I stepped back and realized, and my wife helped me with this too, you didn't have control over all the variables. It was subjective, so don't be so hard on yourself when you don't control all the variables. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It's easy to get caught up in like, what could I have done differently? What did I do wrong? And get in your head, but so much is out of your control.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. The other thing I think that's very clear here is that Hollywood is more of a marathon than a sprint, and to just keep going, keep creating, keep having experiences. Hopefully you don't need to get your heart broken again. So if you've been through it, you don't want to have to go back through it. Hopefully not. Do you have any advice for anyone that's listening to this, that's looking at a career in film, television, that's just starting out? What sort of advice would you give them?
Yeah, I would say don't be afraid to do student films, especially in LA. There's a lot of talent, and it's a great way to build a reel, and you really do need a reel to get in the door and to get an agent. That'd be the first piece. The second piece, beware of predatory practices. There are fake agencies and like reps that will say, like, you can pay me to represent you. Here's the fee you pay per month. That's not how reps get paid. I actually just had a call with a friend about this, wow. But that a lit manager makes a percent of the sale, and same with an agent. They make a percent of what you're booked on, but do not fall for anything that is pay to play. Now, there is a lot of pay to play in terms of you're gonna have to pay for headshots and like workshops and going to festivals or whatever, but just be wary of who is asking for money and what it goes towards.
Wow, that's fantastic advice. That's great. I can't thank you enough again, Jennifer, for your time. I've been wanting to find a way to get you back on this podcast, and I'm so glad I did. You have an open invitation to come back on this podcast anytime you want.
I would love to. Hopefully I'll be able to join you and co-host with you soon.
I'd love that. It's I'm scheduling some interesting people coming up. I've got another great episode that's going to come up. I'll be speaking, and this is a slight plug for the episode after the one you're listening to here, so don't put the cart before the horse. But I will be speaking with Lillian T. Merrill. She is the writer and director of the award-winning new film Honey June, which was filmed in São Miguel, Azores Islands in Portugal. So it's a fantastic film. I was able to screen it, review it. I loved it. I have an opportunity to speak with her. But guests like that, Jennifer, having another creative that comes on, the perspective I think you could bring to one of those podcasts, if we can find the planets could line up and we can find you have free time and the guest has free time.
Yeah, I would love to.
That'd be perfect, because I think your insight is just well beyond mine with that stuff. So that's... Yeah. To my listeners out there, thank you very much for joining us this week. My guest this week, again, was Jennifer Levinson. She is a writer. She's an actress. She's a producer. She's many things and then some. And if you're a fan of Poopery, you might see her on TikTok or Snapchat or one of the socials plugging it. And they have it for dogs now, so I can't wait to hear about that. Anyway, I hope you guys are in a good place. I had some opportunity to hang out with some extended family this weekend in Petaluma, California. which was a lot of fun. I hadn't seen this family in years. That was yesterday. And I say that because I think it's good to put good people and good influences in your life. It's great for your mental health and your mental well-being. But that's enough for me about that. I'll see you guys next week. Have a great one. Bye-bye.